Winston?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now do you see it? It says that the prompt is on there again. Meeting is streaming live.
Yes, now it is on YouTube.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay. All right. There you are. And it wasn't on Facebook or anything. So
Okay, perfect.
All righty. Okay, we're back. Okay, this is Trustee Adam Winston. I am here live. We're streaming live with Attorney Reed. He's our subject matter expert. We're going to be talking about the flat property tax. Trustee Cassandra Matz is also live on this line with us, and we're going to be talking about the flat property tax. We do this every first and third Wednesday of the month, and we've been doing it for the past 2 years to educate individuals in the state of Illinois. This doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you live. This is just common sense in the way that we can address some of the property taxes in our area. Attorney Reed, how are you today? I'm not going to hold up Trustee Matz. I know that she's in the field, but how are you?
I am excellent.
Fantastic. And are you feeling flat tackish?
I am always feeling flat taxes, but even more so on this evening because we are approaching election day here in Cook County area. So it is even more relevant, even more prevalent. The other thing is that we are getting ready to approach. I am excellent.
Fantastic. And are you feeling flat tackish? So somebody has does somebody have, if you have a speaker on, just put it on mute so it doesn't bounce back. Go ahead.
Perfect. There we go. So in addition to us being in the election cycle, we are also about a month away from receiving our second installment of our property tax bill. So everyone is getting ready to feel the burn of our current property tax system. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the screen share. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to pull up our presentation. And we're going to be bouncing around from certain resources because I want to make sure that we have the most current information. But for those people who are just joining, when we talk about the flat property tax, because that's oftentimes what catches the eye of individuals, whether it's they saw an ad on social media or you were talking with someone and they brought it up. A lot of people confuse the flat income tax that we already have in the state of Illinois for what we're proposing, which is the flat property tax. And I have to make that distinction because I don't want people being confused about this because it's too important. Right now in the state of Illinois, we have a flat income tax. We are the only state in the Midwest that has a flat income tax. The income tax rate in the state of Illinois is 4.95%, irrespective as to whether you earn $100 million a year, $100,000, or $20,000 a year. In the state of Illinois, you are taxed at a flat rate of 4.95%. That was a ballot question from approximately 2.5 years ago in 2019 of November, where we were asked, do we want to change from being a flat tax state for income tax purposes, to a progressive tax, where the more money you make, the higher the percentage? Well, as I'm sure most of you can imagine, because most people didn't understand what was actually being proposed, when they were confronted with the question of, do you want a different kind of tax? The answer was no, because most people didn't understand how it would benefit them. And even though it was going to potentially benefit those earning less than $250,000 a year substantially, because it wasn't clear to them, the overwhelming majority said, nope, we don't want to be a progressive tax state, even though it was to their benefit. So we're not talking about income taxes tonight. We're talking about property taxes, which for most of us account for far more of our income than our income taxes ever will. So one of the things that I always like to start out with is letting everyone know that the southern suburbs of Chicago has the highest property tax rate in the United States of America. On average, the effective property tax rate in the southern suburbs is typically at least 18%. Now, to put that into comparison or put it into perspective, the city of Chicago, which everyone always complains has these ridiculous high property taxes, their property tax rate is 6.9%. So depending upon which southern suburb you're in, you might have a tax rate that's 3 times as much or 6 times as much as the city of Chicago. Now, in getting to the reason why that is, the reason why our property tax rates are so high in the southern suburbs especially, but also other places throughout the state, such as Rockford, East St. Louis, really kind of poor communities, is because currently the state of Illinois is not contributing its constitutional fair share to the funding of our public schools. Right now, everyone should see the slide. And let me go ahead and bring it up so where it fills up the entire screen. So according to the Illinois State Constitution, and again, this was adopted in 1970, 11 years before I even entered this great state of Illinois. I was born in October of 1981, and already our state was operating under this state constitution. Article 10, Section 1 of the state constitution, paragraph 3 states that the state has the primary responsibility for financing the system of public education. If and when you hear a term like that, most people, when they hear primary responsibility, numbers such as 75% or 80% come to mind. If the state's supposed to primarily be responsible for funding the system of public education, that should be where they're picking up the bulk of the tab. Legally, in the legal world, whenever it is that that term primary is ascribed, such as in employment, if a job duty is a primary job duty, that means that the task is supposed to be performed more than 50.001% of the time. And for any of those elected officials or politicians out there, you're familiar with this because oftentimes you have to get 50.0001% of the vote in order to get the position. Same concept. The Constitution for the state of Illinois is stating that the state of Illinois should be contributing 50.0001% at a minimum to the financing of the system of public education. So for our K through college, a lot of people aren't familiar and aware of this, but we have public universities, University of Illinois, University of Illinois Chicago, Illinois State. These are all public institutions which are a part of our public education system. All of our community colleges are funded at the public level. So because of that, the state of Illinois should be contributing at least 50.001%. That's the baseline. Now, how much is the state of Illinois contributing? Well, as of 2019, they were on average contributing just 26.6%. They're barely contributing half as much as what the state constitution says they're supposed to. But depending upon what community you live in, I'm originally a native of Park Forest. I grew up in the Chinese House of Park Forest, which is at the corner of Lincoln Highway and Orchard. I attended all public schools, Arcadia, Indiana, O.W. Huth, and Rich East High School for my K through 12, which was a part of Rich Township, District 227 for the high schools. The state of Illinois doesn't even contribute 26.6% for District 227. They only contribute 19.6%. So what that means is that the local property taxpayers now have to make up the difference. So for the majority of the state of Illinois, local property taxpayers are paying 66% of the amount of money necessary to fund the public schools. This is why the property taxes are so high in the southern suburbs. It's not because we don't have businesses. It's not because of the fact that we have larger senior populations, allegedly. It's not because we have more children. It's not because your trustees or your mayor are doing a poor job. It is because the state of Illinois is not meeting its constitutional mandate of 50.001%, and the local property owners are having to make up the difference. So I know that's been a mouthful, and I've been going nonstop for about the last 15 minutes. So I'm going to pause here to see if there are any questions whatsoever. Any questions? Is anyone kind of unclear about what the root problem is? And we're going to continue to flush this out. So there's more to come, but I want to stop to make sure everyone's clear. The state constitution says that the state has the primary responsibility. And right now the state isn't even halfway home to that primary responsibility.
When you give examples, Attorney Reed, can we start with Tinley Park?
Absolutely. Absolutely, we will. Yes. Any other questions? Looks like we have another person who's joined us, Demetrius Coleman. Any questions? Are you, and not even about what's been discussed, but just in general, so I can make sure that we get those addressed. Okay, I'm going to take that silence as a clear understanding thus far. So the next question that usually comes up in these instances is, well, hey, if this is the reason why it is that the taxes are so high, why are they so much higher in the southern-western suburbs, such as Tinley Park or even Oak Forest, Oak Lawn, as opposed to throughout the whole state? Because aren't there kids going to school in Burr Ridge or Winnetka or Barrington? And the answer is yes, there absolutely are kids going to school all over the state. But the reason why it is that the taxes are so much higher in the southern suburbs and other poor communities is because, before I do that, a lot of say, well, how do we compare with the other states? The national average for the state contribution is 47%. That's 20% higher than what Illinois is at. Right now, Illinois ranks 50th out of all 50 states for the percentage of the contribution that the state contributes to public schools. All 49 states are contributing more than what the state of Illinois is contributing percentage-wise. A lot of people say, well, you know what? Those other states are out west or maybe down south, and they have these other reasons. Nevada's got Vegas or the Strip to pay its tourism. Well, Michigan actually is one of the top states where they contribute almost 70% to the funding of their public schools. Property tax payers only have to contribute 14%. Illinois, 66% for property tax owners. Michigan, 14%. North Carolina, the local property taxpayers are only contributing 26%. And in the great state of Idaho, where all they've got is potatoes, their property taxpayers are only contributing 28%. The state is contributing 60%. So that is proof positive that it's not a case where the state can't do it. They're simply refusing not to. And that's what creates the opportunity and the issue. So before we take a look at Tinley Park, I always like to show the highest three. And I'm going to switch over because those were older numbers. And I want for everyone to see the most up-to-date current numbers that I've had the opportunity to compile during the little free time that I get while not working on client matters. So I want everyone to see this. So this is the most current numbers that is based on the most recent reports from the clerk's office. So every year, the Cook County clerk, the Honorable Karen A. Yarbrough, for whom I previously worked for, when she was both the clerk and the recorder, compiled shows the property tax rates for all of Cook County, all 145 different municipalities in Cook County, which is the second largest county in the United States of America behind only Queens County. So the highest three property tax rates in all of Cook County and really in all of the United States of America is Park Forest at a rate of 35.469%, Phoenix at a rate of 28.159%, and Ford Heights at a rate of 27.94%. The three lowest are Burr Ridge, Hinsdale, and Glenview at rates of 6.5, 6.7, and 6.9 respectively, with Chicago being at 6.91. So the question is why? Why is it that Park Forest is the highest and Burr Ridge is the lowest? Because Burr Ridge has students that attend their schools and Park Forest has students that attend their schools. But there's a major difference. And that major difference between the two is that when we look at the median household income for Park Forest, that amount is only $50,343. When we look at the median property value for Park Forest, that amount is only $69,400. Now, let's contrast that with Burr Ridge. And Burr Ridge's median household income is $134,000, almost 3 times the amount of Park Forest. Burr Ridge's median property value is $646,600, which is almost 10 times as much as that Park Forest. The wealth that's in the community of Burr Ridge is almost 10 times as much. When we talk about property values, it's 10 times as much. So if the wealth is 10 times as much, in order to fund the public schools in Burr Ridge, they only need to take a much smaller percentage, as opposed to in Park Forest, they need to take a much higher percentage. And that's what happens when we look at a community such as Park Forest that's paying the highest property tax rate in all of the United States of America. In exchange for paying the highest property tax rate in all of America, they get the 532nd best high school, the 471st best middle school, and the 853rd best elementary school. However, Hinsdale, which has one of the lowest property tax rates in all of Cook County, they have the 10th best high school, the 36th best middle school, and the 36th best elementary school in Illinois. And that's because there's so much more wealth that's in that community. And because the bulk of the money that's being used to pay for the schools is coming from the local community, that's what allows for their taxes to be low while still having such great schools. And that's because our funding form. So again, I'm going to go to it. The high schools in Hinsdale needed $55 million to be adequate. That number is set by the Illinois State Board of Education. Every year, the Illinois State Board of Education says this school district, High School District 86, needs $55 million to be adequate, to turn on the lights, to pay the teachers, to pay their pensions, to pay for the books, the desk, all of the things that go into making for an adequate school district. However, even though Burr Ridge has the lowest property tax rate in all of Cook County, just by taxing 6.4% on their property taxes, somehow they were able to raise $73 million to fund their public schools, which is 134% to budget. Lowest property tax rate in all of Cook County, but they have 134% to fund their high schools. Imagine if a high school has an extra $18 million every year in order to run their high schools. Those schools are probably going to perform very well because now those schools can have extracurricular activities such as lacrosse or boys volleyball, which Richie's didn't have when I went, and I could have been an Olympian if they would have had it. That's another story. The other thing is that it also allows for them to have better accommodations, larger schools, better facilities, because there's $18 million in reserve to be able to upgrade the facilities. Now, contrast that with Park Forest. which had the highest property of 35%. Even though they had the highest property tax rate of 35%, their high school needed 52 million as well, which was only $3 million less than Hinsdale's. But even though they paid the highest property tax rate, their high school only received $37 million, which is part of the reason why the school board voted to close Rich East, my alma mater, because there just isn't enough money to pay for 3 separate campuses. So they voted the tough decision to close one of them, and there still isn't enough money because you can't get blood from a turnip. And that's what's happening. Because of our funding formula, which puts the burden on the local property taxpayers, if it's a poor community like Park Forest, Riverdale, Fort Heights, Phoenix, even though they're being taxed an outrageous percentage, there still isn't enough money to pay for the schools because you can't get blood from a turnip. And that's the reason why we need to move to a flat property tax. So I'm going to pause here again because it's been about another 15 minutes. And I want to make sure that any questions that are coming to mind, we get them answered right away. If not, we're going to take a look at Tinley Park because I want to show people real life scenarios for communities that you're living in. Any questions?
And there's no question that's off topic. This is a great time. It is a lot to wrap your mind around this whole methodology. It seems probably much simpler than most people can appreciate, but Attorney Reed does a very good job at really bringing it home. So if there's no question that you should not feel comfortable asking at this time. So we appreciate you here and we want you to understand it.
Yes, and even if it's not something that we've kind of delved into, I know a lot of times, and I'm going to get to some of them, one of the questions that a lot of people have is, can I just appeal my property taxes and then that reduce it? And I'm going to address that because that's a very big misconception that people think, oh, if I just do this, I'm going to reduce my tax liability, not understanding that all you're doing is shifting it on to all of your fellow neighbors and forcing your local elected officials to have to increase the levy, which then results in the tax rate going up for everybody. So it's just a rat race and a hamster wheel effect where you think that you're taking a step forward when in reality, we're all just going back and then together in that regard. So any questions whatsoever? I want to make sure that everybody's clear on all of these concepts because a big part of the reason why we're in this predicament is because most people don't understand our complex system of property taxes and how we even got here. And I don't want to start talking about the solution if people don't quite understand what the true problem is. So any questions whatsoever, and feel free to chime in. You can post it in the chat. You can unmute yourself and you can ask it. I want to make sure everyone's clear. Okay, so if no questions, now we're going to take a look at a very specific example. So these are resources that are available to the public. And I always stress that because a lot of people say, can you send me the presentation so that way I can have access to the numbers because I want to verify it myself. Well, I'll do you one better. I'll show you how to go find it for yourself so that way you don't have to rely on anything that I'm putting up on the screen. All you do, anyone can do this, is go right to Illinois Report Card. So go right to Google and type in Illinois Report Card, and it'll bring up this screen, which is the Illinois State Board of Education. The Illinois State Board of Education publishes the data for every school throughout the state of Illinois. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Tinley Park high schools because we want to take a look and see what type of funding does the Tinley Park high schools have. And no surprise, without even having came to it, I already knew that the Tinley Park high schools aren't at 100% adequacy rate because there are no schools in the southern suburbs or the southwest suburbs that are at 100%. Orland's the closest, but they're not even 100%. So the Tinley Park High School, which is a part of Bremen High School District 228, That high school needed $77 million to be adequate. That's how much the State Board of Education said it needs to be adequate. However, the money that was raised only came to 52 million. That's 68% to adequacy. So right now, Tinley Park High School is not operating financially at an adequacy rate. Now, it's incredible that even though they're at a 68% adequacy rate, they're still at an almost 90% graduation rate. Usually those numbers aren't that close, because if you're not getting the money you need to educate your students, typically what happens is that your students aren't going to make it to the finish line. But kudos to Tinley Park High School for only losing 1 out of every 10 students through the cracks. So that's great. Now, the next question is where is the money coming from? And more importantly, where isn't the money coming from? So anyone can go through this same process. You just click on where it says school environment, go to where it says district finances. And then, you know what, we're going to look at the school finances. Nope, we got to go to district because they only calculate it at the district level. So we're going to go to district finances and we're going to select revenue percentages. And again, all of this is public record. This isn't my special site that I created, nothing like that. This is all public record. So the state of Illinois, which is better than what the average is, contributed 39.3% to the Tinley Park High School, which meant that the residents of Tinley Park needed to contribute 56.3%. That is problematic because we're asking the residents of Tinley Park to contribute more than the primary portion to fund the public schools. Remember, the state constitution said that the state has the primary responsibility. So these numbers should be flipped. If these numbers were flipped, there's a good chance that now Tinley Park, while they might not be at 100% to adequacy, they might be in the 85 to 90%. And that could be the difference between a 90% graduation rate and maybe a 95 or a 97% graduation rate. That could also be the difference between what programs Tinley Park High School is offering and the tax rate for Tinley Park. So now let's take a look. What is the tax rate in Tinley Park? Well, we're going to come to the clerk's website, and all you do is go to Google and type in Cook County Clerk Real Estate Tax Report, and it'll bring up the tax extension and rates. And every year, the clerk's office compiles these reports. And we're going to look at the 2020 annual tax rate report because that's the last year that they've done. Come this July, the clerk's office is going to likely release the 2021 report. But we're now going to go and we're going to look at, you can take a look at every tax rate throughout the entire county. The clerk puts it in there for all of us. And we're just going to go to the village of Tinley Park, which is on page 73. So I'm going to jump ahead to page 73. I'm going to do it this way, make life easy. So here we are on page 73. And as it turns out, nope, it's not that page. They sent me off. Thanks a bunch. So I'm going to keep scrolling to Tinley Park. And the village of Tinley Park's tax rate is, drum roll, please, 11.57%, which is unbelievable. So that's probably one of the lowest in the South suburbs.
Yes, it is.
That is fantastic. It actually came down from 12.8 thanks to the pandemic, but it's 11.75%. Even with it being at 11.75%, though, that's part of the reason why Tinley Park High School is not funded at a rate of above 68%. So when we go and we take a look at the average tax bill, and again, this is part of the equation. Most people think that their property taxes are going to the county. Whenever I was working for the county, I would always hear, Crook County is taking my taxes. That's not how it works. the bulk of our tax bill goes to our schools. So I'm going to go to Redfin and I'm just, oh, you know what? Nope, I don't even have to do that because I am a homeowner in Tinley Park. We're going to use a property that I am the owner. Well, not me technically, it's the trust, but it's neither here nor there. So we're going to look at the tax bill for a property in Tinley Park. And anybody, again, all this is public record. So I don't want people to think, oh my God, you're showing your information. I am, because anybody can just pull up anyways. So I might as well use somebody's who I feel comfortable and confident sharing. So when we go and we look at the tax bill for a property in Tinley Park, this is what the tax bill looks like. This is the actual tax bill. And this one's not going to work because this property owner didn't pay any because it was a veteran. So it's not going to do any good. Dang it. All right, so let me grab a different one. Sorry about that. So let me grab a different property. I think that this one should work because it should be my neighbor. I think it's 6013. There is no 6013. All right. So, all right, let's do 21. Hopefully they were not a disabled veteran and we'll have a tax bill. Perfect. This one's going to work. Okay, so now we're going to pull up this tax bill. And again, I want to stress all of this is public record. Anybody can pull up anyone's tax bill through Cook County. All you need is the address. If you have the address, you can find everything you need regarding that property. All right, perfect. This is exactly what, whoa. This, like, I could not have chosen a better example. So if anyone is in Tinley Park and you say, my tax bill is so high, it must be because that mayor or those trustees are doing a terrible job. 86% of your tax bill goes to the schools. I have never seen a percentage that high. I think Olympia Fields was the last one that was the highest, and it was at 70%. In Tinley Park, 86% of your tax bill goes to the schools.
Right,
With
Attorney Reed,
40
if I could jump in right there. So 86%
Please do.
Goes to the school, and still they still are only getting hit with a little less than 12% in their taxes. So can you make that connection?
Yes, yes. Can I make that connection? So the question is, if 86% of the tax bill is going to the schools, meaning the overwhelming majority, and the schools are not receiving what they need in terms of an adequacy budget, why is it that Tinley Park's tax rate is only 11.5%? That's the question that you're asking, right? Why isn't their tax rate higher, like in Lansing or like Linwood? So that speaks to the importance of choosing who is your school board president and who are the school board trustees. Because the school board president for School District 145 and Bremen High School District 228, they have made the decision, the financial decision, to not increase their levy despite the fact that they need and deserve more money. And without delving too far into the political aspect of it or even the ideological aspect of it, that's the answer. They've said, even though we know we're only at 68%, because I guarantee you, everybody on that school board knows that they're at 68% adequacy, they've still said we're not going to increase our levy. And because of that, that's what keeps the tax rate so low. So it is an ideological, a political, whatever adjective you want to use, they've made the decision to say, we're not going to increase our levy, even though we're hurting for money. So does that answer the question for you, Trustee Winston?
It does. It does answer the questions. And I did unmute. I've made it, everybody's able to unmute themselves now. So if you have any questions, I just unmuted you.
So I've seen a question that was in the chat. Thank you for that. And the question is, well, how much is going to the village? And that's a great question because that's always what most people want. 1.34% is going to the village, which is unreal. That is unreal. Usually on average is between 10 to 15%. In a community like Park Forest, it's usually about 40%. This is unreal. The libraries are getting the majority of this. They're getting more money than the village. And then Cook County is receiving 4.62% for elections, as well as the public health, the hospitals and so forth. So for any resident of Tinley Park who wants to know why their tax bill is so high, unlike any other community throughout Cook County, it is exclusively because of the schools. And I see a hand up.
Mayor, you are live.
Thank you. Councilor Reed, could you please, I can't zoom in enough to see the exact total of that tax bill that that the village charges. Can you list
Yeah.
that?
Let us know when you can see it a little bit better because he's zooming in now.
Yeah, my eyes aren't that great.
So in this case, and this, I don't think that the property of this property on James Street is an unincorporated, because I don't think that I'm an unincorporated. But
Yeah, it looks like under municipality and township taxes,
yeah, I'm just seeing Bremen as well as the general. So I'm not seeing Tinley Park at all.
it should say Village of Tinley Park. Are you in Kimberly Heights?
I got to be honest with you because I just bought it a month ago. I don't know those, but what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to, by chance, you know of another address that you know is in Tinley Park, the incorporated portion, so I can pull up that tax.
And actually, this is Kimberly Heights, the one that we're looking at.
Yeah, that's so Kimberly Heights.
Yep,
We give people the option whether they would like to annex in or not. So I'm assuming this house probably isn't.
Chose not to.
Yeah,
Perfect.
try 6250 Jody Lane.
JODY?
Yes, JODY.
All right, so I'm pulling it up, and everyone's still seeing my screen, right? So everyone's seeing how I'm going about doing this.
Because Bremen Township, we should be about, I'm guessing about 13%, like you were saying, between 10 and 15.
Yep. Yeah, so that's the usual, which is why that tax bill is so startling, because it's not the norm, anywhere close to the norm.
Man,
so
that homeowner has it made, Councilor Reed.
They do, and that's, again, the importance of people. Here we go. Yep, so there you go. So you were right. All right, so here we go. So here is a little bit better example because it does include Tinley Park. And the Village of Tinley Park, again, is still only 10.68, which is an incredible, incredible number. The schools for this bill are 73%. So it's still number one because Olympia Fields was at 70%. And now Tinley Park, we have it is at 73. So almost 3/4 of the bill is going to the schools, with only 10.68% going to the Village of Tinley Park. So when the constituents and the homeowners are out there saying, oh, it's because my trustees aren't doing right, or my school board's not doing right, or I'm not getting anything for, or the county, the majority of our tax bills, overwhelming majority, 73% of this homeowner's tax bill is going to paying for the schools. And the schools still are inadequate. And the reason why that the tax rate isn't higher, to your question, Trustee Winston, is because the school board has said, even though we need more money, we're not even at 70%. They're choosing not to increase the levy because I imagine they understand it's going to increase the property tax rate, and then there will be accountability for it. Yes, sir, Mayor Mike.
So thanks for pulling that up. So if you look at it, the Village of Tinley is only 10.68, if I read that right, and about $700.
Yeah.
Which is ludicrous. If you look, like you were showing examples across the state, we do an excellent job. It all starts from development and building your tax base. We are we are across the board, evenly distributed. We don't, like Orland Park, they put all their eggs in one basket. If retail's going well, they're doing great. If it's not, they have a lot of empty storefronts. Where Orland, we're a mix of residential, industrial, retail, commercial. And that's kind of how we believe that you should set up your town. Sometimes you can't, based on certain circumstances, but this is what it distributes the tax base amongst all the taxing bodies evenly. And, you don't have to worry about if a sector's not doing as well affecting your residents.
Which I agree with you to a point, other than the fact that we saw, even with this great strategy, which again, I'm a fan of because the village isn't overtaxing, the schools are receiving 73%. And we saw that the high school isn't even at 70% to adequacy. And that's where the problem comes in, because if you have children in Tinley Park and you're sending them to the public schools, they deserve to have their schools funded at 100%, especially because Burr Ridge has a tax rate of just 6% and their schools are funded at 134%. And that's the reason we need to move to a flat property tax. And that serves as a great segue for us to talk about the solution. So we've taken a look at the specifics. We've looked at the tax bill. Right now, the reason why it is that Tinley Park has to tax at 11.5% in terms of the property tax rate, but Burr Ridge can tax at 6.4% is because we don't have a flat property tax rate. And the property tax owners in the local community are having to shoulder the burden of more than 66% of the cost to fund schools. What we need to do is move to a system similar to what's in Indiana, where we have a flat property tax throughout the entire state of Illinois. And that flat property tax rate would be 10%. So what that would mean is that irrespective as to which community you were in, if you lived in Burr Ridge, or if you lived in Tinley Park, or if you lived in Ford Heights, or Park Forest, or Hinsdale, your property tax rate would be 10%. And then all of the money that's due to go to the schools, instead of it going to the county tax collector and then back to the local school district, it would all go to Springfield. Springfield, the Illinois State Board of Education, would then collect all of the money, and wherever the students were, they would send the per pupil spending amount, whatever that number was, to however many students were in that school. So if Tinley Park High School needed $55 million to be adequate, or no, I think the number was 72 million. If Tinley Park High School needs 70, and we're going to pull up the exact number, $77 million to be adequate, then the State Board of Education would send $77 million to Tinley Park High School, and that would make sure that they were funded at a rate of 100%. And the reason why this would be able to happen is because if every single municipality was at 10%, a municipality like Tinley Park is going to see a decrease. They're going to go from 11.5 down to 10%. So the property owners are going to pay less in property taxes. But because Burr Ridge went from 6.4% up to 10%, now we're going to generate over $4 billion in new revenue, which is where we're going to be able to fund all of the schools throughout the entire state of Illinois at a 100% rate throughout the entire state. So by equalizing the amount that's collected, where everyone pays 10%, irrespective as to whether you're in Rockford or you're in Park Forest, whether you're in East St. Louis or you're in Crystal Lake or Lake of the Hills, every single municipality has a 10% tax rate, And all the money that was going to schools now goes to schools, but the money doesn't stay local. The money goes throughout the entire state, and wherever the kids are, so shall the money follow. That's how the flat tax would work. And there's precedent for this because remember, the state constitution says the state has the primary responsibility. All we're doing is giving the state the funding formula and the tool to implement what the state constitution says. And even more importantly, the overwhelming vote of the people was that we like flat taxes. Henceforth, why we rejected the potential for a progressive income tax, because we think that everyone should be equal in the percentage that they pay of their assets. In that case, the income. So that's how the flat property tax would work. And in order to show you exactly who's going to be impacted positively or potentially adversely, I'm going to bring up the list of every municipality in Cook County so you can see just how big or how many municipalities are going to be impacted. So everyone should now see the screen that has, it looks like chicken scratch, so forgive me for that, but there are exactly 134 municipalities in Cook County. Of those 134 municipalities, only 45 of them have a tax rate lower than 10%. So only 45 municipalities are going to see an increase in their tax rate. And it's not even going to be a huge increase. Winnetka is going to go from 8% to 10%. Wilmette's going to go from 7.8% to 10%. Western Springs is going to go from 8% to 10. Westchester, 9.6 to 10. That's the minimal increase that we're talking about. But because there's so much wealth in those communities, an increase from 8% to 10% is going to help add another $4 billion worth of revenue for our schools. And then the next question that especially the municipalities are going to ask is, what's that going to do to our money? The answer is nothing, because remember, Tinley Park only accounts for 10.8% of that tax bill. So not only is it a case where their money's not going to be impacted, now they're going to be able to collect more revenue because the residents now aren't having to contribute 86% to their underfunded schools or 73% to their underfunded schools. So there's now enough money to fund all schools at a rate of 100%. The municipalities stay either flat or they increase. And it's a case where all schools throughout the state are funded equally. And the local property owners for all of those municipalities that are above 10% now get property tax relief. That's what the flat tax is about. And that's why it's so beneficial if you live in a community that has a tax rate over 10%. So I'm going to pause now because I've given a ton in the last 15 to 20 minute segment. So I want to make sure that anybody who's on, and I appreciate it, we appreciate you sticking through it and hearing everything. Do you have any questions about what the flat property tax is, how it would work, how it would be implemented, and why it is that it's so transformative for communities in the Southland and anywhere where they are poor communities that don't have as much wealth as a Hinsdale or a Burr Ridge? Any questions whatsoever?
Councilor Reed, I just want to add that I think you hit the nail on the head. Our, as everyone knows, our taxing body for our schools are separate from the village.
Yes.
We do our part the best we can, and then the assessor comes in and he hit us pretty hard. On the Southland got hit pretty hard over the last year and a half from him, and our school boards do a great job. And it's exactly what you said. There's nothing their hands are tied.
Yep.
And
Yeah, you can't get blood from a turnip. That's
No.
where our school boards are. That's where our municipalities are. And that's what needs to change because the Constitution says it.
and the more money we bring in, the more the state takes.
Yep.
And this and our school boards don't get their fair share. And then every time you move in, if you look, there's houses that we have are 900 and was it 80 square feet, and they're paying $10,000 a year in taxes
Yep.
for
And,
988 square feet.
and it's a case where it's all because most people are unaware that this is what the root problem is. I'm sure you've ran into your fair share of residents who blame you for the tax situation. And no matter how hard you go and then try and explain it, until they've seen it, until they've seen, hey, this isn't something which is unique to Tinley Park, look around the entire state. And it's all because most people don't even know who their state senator or their state representative is. And those are the individuals who can implement this. Any state senator and any state representative could introduce legislation to say we need to adjust our public school funding formula to be consistent with the state constitution. Think about how easy of a concept that is. All they'd have to say is that we want our funding formula to be compliant with the state constitution. Who is going to say, no, don't do that? Nobody in their right mind would say, what, you're trying to be compliant with the Constitution? I disagree with you. But the reason why it is that this doesn't happen is because if you live in Winnetka, if you live in Hinsdale, if you live in Burr Ridge, and someone comes to you and says, your taxes are going to go up and the amount of money that goes to your local schools is going to go down, what is your answer to that request going to be? Well, the answer is no. I don't want to pay more in taxes and get less money going to my local schools. The overwhelming majority, and we've met with people who they get it and they're in these communities and they say, you know what, I'm okay with that. And we greatly appreciate those individuals. But the majority of people are going to say, no, I don't want to pay more in taxes to fund schools in Tinley Park, to fund schools in Park Forest, to fund schools in Phoenix, in Riverdale, in Fort Heights. However, that's what being a resident of the state of Illinois is supposed to be. And that's not my opinion. That's the state constitution, which was adopted 11 years before I was even born. And that's what this is about. It's about helping everyone in the state understand the reason why our taxes are so disproportionate and all over the place when it comes to property taxes is not because businesses aren't in your community, not because you have seniors, not because you have cooperatives, which is what I always hear about Park Forest. It's because the state right now isn't carrying its fair share, and the Constitution says it should, and it's up to us to put pressure on our state senators and our state representatives to say, if you don't get compliant with the Constitution, we might have to find someone who will. But it starts with us understanding that this is the problem, and how that works is we need help with driving more people to these workshops, because usually all it takes is about an hour and 15 minutes to fully understand it. But we need people to give us an hour and 15 minutes. And once they do, then we're able to help them understand. And now the next time that you get to vote for your state rep, state senator, which surprise, surprise, is in 14 days here in Cook County, you can say, are you going to implement a flat property tax? And if the candidate says no, then you may not want to choose that one. But if they say, yes, I support that measure, then that's the person we want. And then when we get enough of them, then we'll be able to get this legislation passed, and then it will benefit all children throughout the state of Illinois and all property owners throughout the state of Illinois, especially in the southern and southwestern suburbs. So any questions whatsoever? I know it's been a mouthful. I know it's been a lot of information, If anyone has any questions that they come up with after, you're always welcome to reach out and email. And I want to stress, and when I say we, Trustee Winston, Trustee Matts, and myself, we will go anywhere, almost anytime, daytime, nighttime, weekends, and present this information to anybody who's willing to listen. We've traveled up to Rockford. We've traveled down to Peoria, Bloomington, in the most efficient of ways, right, Trustee Winston? It was efficient travel.
Warp speed.
Warp speed. We will come to you. We give money away. We went to Dalton and gave away over $300 to attendees. We want to get the word out because we are passionate about this. We're not getting paid to do this. We literally will pay people to come and listen. Our goal is to help educate, because people will say, well, when's the measure going to be on the ballot? Or when are we going to just get a petition? We're not going to do because we don't want it to fail. We need people to understand this is an available option and we need support. We liken ourselves to the Mothers Against Drunk Driving initiative. They started out very small. They had a grassroots campaign where they went and they talked to people all over and explained that the reason we have all these drunk driving deaths is because the laws are so lenient against drunk drivers. And they put the pressure on candidates and on their elected officials and said, look at all these people who support our movement. And if you don't support it, we're going to put our people to vote for somebody else. And now the state of Illinois has some of the most punitive laws against drunk driving in the nation. It took them about a decade. We understand that this is going to take time. What we're asking of everyone on the call is to please invite people to tune in every first and third Wednesday. Or if, for instance, you are a mayor of a community, if you can put together a town hall, we will come, we'll bring literature, we'll bring refreshments, we'll bring all of the projector, the screen, so that everybody can see it well. And we will present the information to your constituents to help them understand that it's not you doing a bad job. It's not your school board doing a bad job. It's our broken public school funding formula, which ranks 50th out of 50. And we can make a difference as long as we know what the problem is and what a viable solution is.
Yes.
I just want to jump in there. I just want to jump in real quick and just reiterate what Attorney Reed just said. And we've been doing this now going on 2 years. We've been dedicated to this. When I realized that I couldn't do anything about it and I kept kicking the can down the road, letting them know it's not the municipality. And then Attorney Reed reached out to me and said, I have the answer. I was excited because I am affected by this non-formula, the non-understanding of how our schools are choking us out of our homes. And by me living in Olympia Fields, we are deemed a senior community. Our medium age is 55. So we don't have kids in the school system, but we do know that our property is tied to the school system. Because if our property goes down because the school is not fully funded, they're not educating the kids on a scholar level, nobody wants to move into Olympia Fields. And we are aging out. We're dying out over there. So we have a lot of home stock that we can't attract young families to because of our high property taxes. So we deploy you guys to help us out, help us get the word out. And like Attorney Reed said and Trustee Winston, we are dedicated to this. We're going to keep doing this and we will keep the light on. If it's just us three on this call every first and third Wednesday, we're here. We will continue to be here until we get this done. That's all.
Well, if there, Attorney Reed, I'd like to thank you again for your time because it does take a certain level of dedication, and we've been doing it. So, and I'd like to thank everyone who joined in. If you have or you need the presentation, Attorney Reed, did you put the link in there where they need the presentation or?
Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and post my email address. And if you have any questions that come up or anyone has anything that they kind of want clarity surrounding because they just, it was so much and so fast. My email address is just my name, marioareed@outlook.com. And at which point I'm happy to send over anything that is desired. And again, we want to get in front of the people. We have the information, we have the literature, we have, if need be, the money to bribe people by saying, we'll give you $10, $20 to come out in a raffle. What we don't have is the capabilities and the capacity and the bandwidth to get dozens of people to come out and hear it. And that's what we're asking for your help with. Please, and it's just as simple as inviting, because when we post on social media, the people who are in our network, they'll share it and they'll say, but there's nothing like the person who you live next door saying, hey, I want you to jump on this call with me in 2 Wednesdays and just spend an hour and a half. It's not hard work, in my opinion, to just sit and take in the info. But it is a case where it can make a difference. And as more of us become engaged, we will see the change. There's 89 municipalities that will see their taxes go down and their schools be funded fully. 89. 89 is twice as many as 45. And that's what we're talking about. We need for the people of the 89 communities and the 45 to understand how beneficial this is for all of us, and everyone wins together. So if there are no other questions, we are going to put an end to this workshop.
Yes.
I want to thank those who tuned in, all of the people who have stuck around. Does anyone have any questions whatsoever? Anything that they feel wasn't addressed, or they don't still quite, or they're not sure about certain concepts, please let us know right now. We'll get it answered.
And just to recap, we do this every first and third Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. The same link that you used this evening would be the same link that you would use on the third Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. So you can share it and invite anyone you want to attend these Zoom conferences. Go ahead, Trustee Matz.
I was just gonna say, this is your time to ask Attorney Reed anything. It don't even have to be pertaining to the property tax. He is a genius. Can I say that again? A genius. So if you have any legal question, this is your time to get some free 2 seconds legal information.
I just want to say,
Hearing none? Oh, there we go.
I just want to say I learned a lot to myself. So thank you to you guys for putting this together. To echo what you were saying earlier, counselors, I get asked that all the time. Why are my taxes? Why is Tinley charging us so much?
Yeah.
And I have to be careful with my words because it's not our school district's fault and you don't want to blame them.
Yeah.
But when you look at the tax bill, and like you showed, it was 70, I think you said 73, 74%.
Yeah, 73.3%.
It appears that way, but you don't want to blame them. But on paper, it looks like it's their fault, right? And so, and for the village's sake, we try to keep their taxes as low as possible on our end because we know the other agencies are going to be increasing it, and it's from not, like you said, not following the Constitution and not funding everyone properly. So, we're the redheaded stepchilds down here. We all get punished, and I agree with you. We're not treated the same. And, we do the best we can on our side to keep those taxes low, but we can't help the school enough. I wish we were able to, rebate all of our taxes back to everyone. It's just not possible. We do as well as we can. And, it's very informational. So, and I understand taxes really well, even though I'm an operator during the day. I do roughly between 300 to 400 real estate tax appeals where I help neighbors every year. I don't charge anyone. I've been doing it for 10 to 12 years. We created a program. I could pull 10,000 comparables on that property that you have up there in 5 seconds. And we try to help people as much as we can because of these problems that you just brought forward. So,
but I'm glad that you bring that up because our firm, we do property tax appeals as well. I spent 5 years with the recorder's office, a year with the clerk's office, and I would attend usually anywhere from 400 to 500 tax appeals with the Board of Review and the assessor workshops throughout the year. When you do those appeals, what you're saying to the assessor and then to the Board of Review is you overvalued this home. Well, if you're successful by pulling and submitting the comparables, what do? They reduce the assessed value of that home. But you know better than most, does that change the amount of money that Tinley Park needs to run its village?
So say that question again.
Yep. So the amount of money that Tinley Park needs to run its village is a finite number, correct, in theory?
Yes.
Right. So if you reduce the assessed value of 200 property owners in Tinley Park, does that change the amount of money that Tinley Park needs to run its village?
Yes.
Does it?
Yeah, because we have to make up for the shortfall. Someone has to.
Right, exactly. So it didn't change the money you need. It just changed the manner in which you now have to collect it.
Correct.
So what that means is that now you all may have to raise your levy.
Yeah, we
And
try
we-
not to raise our levy, and Tinley Park has done a very good job on trying to keep it, level.
And I'm
And,
with you, and that's great. But going back to the importance of this, you helping those property owners decrease their assessed value, while it has a temporary reprieve effect for just those property owners, it doesn't change the amount of money that Tinley Park and the schools need. So all it does, like Trustee Matt said, is it kicks the can down the road, and it's not an actual solution. It's a Band-Aid for a few, but it doesn't fix the problem. And that's the reason why we have to get out of that cycle of a few people appeal, they win their appeals, they get tax relief, but now it pushes the responsibility onto the rest of the owners, and then eventually the levy increases. That's the perpetual cycle that communities in the Southland go through, and we have to stop it. It should be to the point where, imagine if the assessor assessed the properties exactly like they did, but the tax rate was 10%. Now, everybody still saw a discounted rate. And more importantly, the schools would have been funded. So the property owners in Tinley Park would have paid less, and their schools would have been funded at 100%. That's what we're talking about. And so frequently people get caught up in, well, I'll just appeal and I'll make my tax bill go down. And I'll show everyone a real quick example. And because I'm a professional tax appealer, we offer that service. So I bought a property in Lansing. And when I bought that property in Lansing, the reason why it had stayed on the market for over a year was because the property taxes were $13,000. So this property is at 178th and Locust, and nobody wanted to touch the property because the taxes were $13,000. Well, when I went in, I wasn't afraid of that because I know how to play the game. So I appealed the property taxes, and guess what the balance was reduced to? $3,900. I got the bill to go from $13,000 down to $3,900. But that $10,000 difference still needed to be made up. So because of that, the money had to come from somewhere else. So even though I got a reprieve, and it was a case where it worked out well for me, it didn't change the fact that Lansing still needed however many millions of dollars to run Lansing. So the money has to be made up. And that's the part where I so frequently caution lots of property owners to say, while it's good to do an appeal, and I highly recommend doing both of them, first through the assessor and then through the Board of Review, that's not the solution for what our true problem is. And my hope is, Mayor Mike, let us come in and say the things that you have to be careful about saying. Say it to them as transparently and as blatant as possible, and give them the data to show them why it's not Mayor Mike's fault. It's not the school board's fault. It's our state's fault. And we have to make a concerted effort to hold our state representative and our state senators accountable. And once we do that, then hopefully we'll be able to see where we won't have to do the appeals as much because our tax rates will be accurate, our schools will be funded at 100%, and everybody will be in a good place. So that's our hope. So with that being said, we're now at 8:18. We're not going to hold anyone any longer. Thank you to each and every one of you. Hopefully we can partner on workshops in your local communities. We'll go to your school board meetings. We'll go to your condo association. We'll go to your block clubs. We'll come to your town halls. If there are people who are willing to listen, we want to get in front of them and present the information. And please let us know. We will get it done.
Yep. So with no further ado, thank you again, Attorney Reed, Trustee Matz. Everyone, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And
Thank
we
you.
will see you next time. Have a
Have a
good
great
night.
one now.